Well, good morning everyone again, and it's Henry here, and I'm off on another trip. It's looking like nice weather. This is a 6-day, 5-night trip to Lake Temagami, and it's a big kind of a loop trip. I'm camping at a different spot every night, so I'm also on this one with my buddy Frank, and he's probably already on the water now with the plan he had, and I'll be coming kind of behind him. Day one has us getting in at Iceland Lake, which is halfway along the Temagami access road, and then paddling down through Wakasina to the north end of Cross Lake to a nice little campsite. All in total about 16 kilometers of travel. However, there's 1,300 meters, maybe even 1,500 meters of portaging. One is a 1,300 meter beast at the end of this. So that's a good way to start the trip, and it's the longest one of the trip. Most of the other portages are fairly small. If there are a couple of days, there aren't any at all. So looking forward to it. I feel like my prep has gone well, and we're just driving up here on north on Highway 64, which will then meet Highway 11, and then onward up there. So the drive for me this morning is about 115 kilometers or so, we're getting along pretty well. So one challenge I've had on this trip going in is the, I probably mentioned before, I use a Garmin 66i for my navigation. And I love this thing. It's been absolutely terrific since I bought it 3 years ago. My only complaint, which has reared its ugly head on this trip, is getting data into the GPS. It used to be that you connected your GPS to your computer with a USB cable and used a program like Basecamp or something and planned your routes on that, which is much easier than the interface on the GPS, and then just simply uploaded it, and it took a few seconds. Since then, Garmin has moved to a situation where you have to synchronize it with an app on your cell phone. And that app on the cell phone is synchronized with the computer. Now, the logic of that escapes me, but nevertheless. So, I put in the routes yesterday for the trip, and it all looks good. They're all the right collections of everything. I synchronize with the GPS, and only the first route comes through. And there's absolutely nothing I seem to be able to figure out why only the first one would go, but none of the other ones would come through. So I ended up using some of the words that Dad used to use when the barbecue wouldn't start, and didn't do any good. So my remedy for this, in that I generally know where I'm going anyway, so even if I don't have the nice purple line on the GPS, I still know where I'm supposed to be. But I also can make the route on the GPS each morning and do it that way. It'll be probably coarser, but it'll do. So I have to sort this out when I get back, because you know, this is supposed to be a 15-second thing, and it turned into a 3-hour adventure, which with no answer. And there's, you know, it's at the last minute. You're not going to get anybody on the phone or anything. It's not. That's the problem with these things, is that the need is immediate, and the resources aren't there. And everywhere I looked, it just says just sink it, which I did many times. So anyhow, I'm just saying. Now my GPS seems to be working otherwise. I've got the SATCOM, the maps work, everything else is working. All it is just this synchronization thing. So, so that's a big boo for this, but that should be okay. I know where I'm going on the trip. It's just nice to have it mounted in the canoe, and you can see where you're going. Funny, before a trip starts like this, I always find myself really anxious. I feel like I'm prepared, ready to go, but I'm really keen that the trip starts, and curious to see what I'm going to see, and if everything will go well, and the weather will hold. Just this whole sense of anticipation, and the drive up is beautiful, and I've got to remind myself to enjoy it, because I don't want to get ahead of myself. But I am keen to get on the water. So that's the creek, whatever you want. Oh, here it is. Okay.
Your destination is on the left.
Yeah, I see that. Okay. So this. Oh, there it is. Okay, there's him right there. Okay, good. All right, Frank has arrived. So I'm at the put-in here on the Temagami access road at the Iceland Creek, lake, whatever, river, whatever it is here. And it looks just so natural and wild. It's just going to be a wonderful dry paddle through here. We're on Iceland Lake after a nice little paddle down the creek and just following our way through the bays. On the way south, Frank texted me and he is almost to Wakasina, so he's ahead of me by a few kilometers, but it shouldn't be too bad, and we'll see how we marry up later on in the day. What a beautiful day. We've got a nice following breeze. I would say it's probably 15 to 20 k an hour, but the water is no problem, and we'll just keep going here.
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got time, it's clear to see. From up here, the world seems small. We can sit together. It's so beautiful, you and me, meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free. Sometimes you need to go and take a step back to see the truth around you. From a distance you can tell. You and me were meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free. You and me, meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free.
So here we are at Heritage Lake, I believe. That's the portage is done. It's about 300 to 400 meters, something like that. I don't know, it took me 15-20 minutes, which is typical. Now we got a fair paddle all the way to the other end of Wakasina before the long portage into Cross. What's amazing though here is the plethora of boats and in fact dockage you just never see in the backcountry otherwise. So that's Driftwood Lake behind me. I just crossed over roughly that little dent beside my right ear. And it was a pretty good crosswind, but with the pack and all the rest of the front of the canoe, it held its line pretty nicely. And but at the same time, it's not sluggish. So this weight, I would say probably about 70 pounds, seems to be just right for doing this. And that sort of goes with my two canoeing ballast jugs as well. They're about the same mass. Anyhow, now we're back onto a water course and moving south. So this is the view from my lunch stop, and the big portage is down that way somewhere, and that's about 1,300 meters. So we have to get from here to there first in the canoe, and then I'm going to go a little bit around this side just to stay a bit out of the wind. And then after the canoe, then I'm on Cross Lake, and then it's just over to the campsite. Well, it might be 2K or so, but we might be into a headwind there. We'll have to see. But what a beautiful day, and what a beautiful area to paddle through. This is just wonderful here. I've had a wonderful time. Frank's up ahead. He might be at the campsite now. I don't know. He was about here when I put in. And that's about 2 hours ago, so he should have made a certain amount of distance. I'll beep him and see if he can tell me what he's doing. Well, I'm down here at the south end of Wakasina, and just ahead of me, I just got to find it, is this 1,000 or 1,300 meter portage, and gonna get started on that, and then after that it's a fairly, maybe a K or two to the campsite. At least the one he planned. I haven't heard from him, so hopefully that's where it is. Anyhow, here we go. I was just about to paddle away when then this opened up between, but it does look like a decent path. So I just got to get out of the boat and get organized. Here we go. So I've got about 300 meters to go on probably what was 1200, I guess. I don't know. I'm finding it quite a slog. My shoulders get tired after 120 to 150 meters. Mainly, I think, because the uneven terrain. It's just a different kind of walking with a lot of rocks on it. So I just keep hopscotching the backpack and the canoe, and we're getting there. Got 300 meters here from here to the water. So we'll see how far the canoe can go this time. And the pack is up at 200 meters, so we're not too far now. So here's hoping. The bugs on this trail started off not too bad. About halfway through they got worse, and I had to put the jacket on. Now it's certainly a lot better than it was earlier in the season, but we're doing okay here. So this was kind of the condition of the trail for most of it. There was places where there's more rocks, but most of it was pretty reasonable all the way through. So I don't know who's maintaining this, but it's really appreciated, because that's a long way with a lot of gear, and to have at least a decent footpath. There's no blazing, but you don't really need it. So I made it, barely. So anyhow, Frank's making noise in the distance, so he's obviously not at the campsite we'd planned. He's closer. So I'm just going to put my canoe in the water, and I think it's 100-200 meters away apparently, and should be in sight pretty soon. So we've been fortunate to find a magnificent campsite here. Beautiful view of the water, and lots of room in behind for our stuff and campsites and you name it. Frank has his new tent with its garage attached there, and knowing him, he'll fill that. And then over here is my spot in my little eating place, and it goes back in behind, and there's even a little thunderbox back there. So this is the only thing missing here is internet. It's wonderful, and of course we don't really want that here anyway. Pretty special. We got our friendly neighborhood snapping turtle here, who's been interested in our activities and has now come out of the water. Wants to try out our campsite. Isn't that wonderful? Look at him. So I drove up Highway 11 and turned left onto the Temagami Lake access road, and that is marked as number 1 on the map. I then drove about 4 to 5 kilometers to the river crossing where I parked my car, and that's marked number 2. The paddle down through that river and into Iceland Lake is beautiful, and there's no trouble at all. And then you go through Iceland Lake into one of the bays, and you have the first portage that is marked 3. And it's about 300 meters long, and it's slightly downhill. It's well marked. There's a little dock on both sides. There's really no trouble at all. And then I paddled all the way down to Wasaksina Lake, and that again is all open. You don't have to portage or anything. It's nice and wide. Very nice paddling. And just at number 4 there is where I had my lunch. Continuing my trip, starting with the item number 1 on the map, which is where I had my lunch, which was item 4 on the previous map, I proceeded southwest through Wakasina down to the lower bay marked at the beginning of the long portage at number 2. And that took me almost 2 hours to finish that portage. I found that quite a job, even though it was generally downhill. It still just seemed to be painful carrying the heavy. Then the paddle to the campsite was only about 200 or 300 meters. Frank had found this. He had already gotten here a few hours before me. And instead of camping at 4 where we were going to stop, we decided to campsite at 3 because it was just such a wonderful sight. We had a beautiful view to the south of Cross Lake, and the other thing to mention here too is that the sites in this area are first come, first served, so there's no pre-assigned site. So switching a site like this is entirely just our own choice. There's no consequence